Hi, welcome to the Badaboom podcast. This is Troy, and sadly, I'm going to shame Chris a little bit about this because I thought he would be on top of this. Chris has never watched Stranger Things. I think he said he watched like the first episode or two, but he hasn't. But we've got to talk about Stranger Things. It's just content that, I love it. And our good friend of the show, Vincent, loves it and is joining us for this episode. What's up, Vincent?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. We're glad to have you. I was saying this right before we started recording an episode, but out of everyone I know, if something new comes out, you're like the first person that's watched it. And I don't know how you don't spoil it for people because you're very passionate about whatever you watch. So, what did you think about this last season of Stranger Things, part 1, part 2? Did you like that it was in 2 parts?
Are we dropping some spoiler kind of?
Even better. Well, you know what? Yes, we'll throw
I haven't seen this, so
spoiler. Yeah, we'll throw a spoiler banner up. But honestly, like at the point that this podcast episode is being released, if you haven't seen it, why are you listening to this?
It's almost as long as Phase 4 of the MCU. So I could almost get it. I could almost see it.
I'm going to argue that. Are you talking about Phase 4? This show, including all the shows, or just the movies? Because that's another podcast episode we'll have you on for. But how'd you like it?
So this was, and they are not lying when they put this in the ads, this is the most ambitious season that they have done so far. It is so grand. There's so many things happening. It doesn't feel like these episodes are hour-long episodes. They are literally flying by, but it is so ambitious. There's so much stuff happening, and it feels really good that it's moving. It's not moving at too fast of a pace that you're like, well, how did this happen? How did this happen? It's moving at a pace that the story needs at the moment.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been in Hawkins for 3 seasons now, and that's primarily where everything is happening. But where we are now is, Elle and the family have moved over to another city, and she's adjusting to school life over there, dealing with bullies there. You still have Will and Hawkins. And then later on, we find out that, why can't I remember his name right now? But Elle's father is still alive. Hopper. I'm like, I can't remember his name. I want to say like Cougar. I'm like Doogie Howser or something. And so there's, we have 3 different locations, and we're in these 3 different locations, and actually 4 locations because you also have the Upside Down.
Well, actually, it's kind of 5 because once they take L, then it's to like the Nina Project. Then it's.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yes. Yeah. But there's, you're in so many locations, and all of these stories are happening. They're going back and forth, and for a lot of the season, all the characters are separated, and we don't get everybody back together to literally maybe like the last 10 minutes of the second part of the finale.
Wait, Hopper and what's her name? Is it Joan? I can't. That's her name in the.
Yes.
They don't need to be in. Like, I don't think them joining is like everyone's back together because they weren't really even in this entire season. Like, her arc is just how do we get Hopper back?
Exactly.
Which wasn't really my favorite thing because I feel like it took too long to get what they needed. I was really hoping Hopper would show back up in Hawkins and like do the Hopper badass thing. But
I feel like it needed to take longer because if you just go to a Russian prison and you're just breaking them out, it's like Black Widow all over again. It happens in 10 minutes. Like, this is like, maybe this is not so believable.
Wow, the irony that's the second time. This is going to become like, what's his name? That we're always saving, like Saving Private Ryan and The Martian. Matt Damon. He's going to become the new Matt Damon. Like, you need someone rescued from Russia. All right, we're going to have this actor play him.
Exactly. But I think like he needed that. I think he needed to go through what he went through. And I think Elle needed to be by herself and not really have that supportive father figure that she, had in the last season so that she could kind of come into her own a little bit more. So I don't think that it was like overdrawn or like lasted too long. I think it was like the perfect amount of time. Yes, there were some things that like, well, how did that helicopter get all the way from here to there? But I think the story made sense and it needed to happen.
I really liked Nancy's character development overall because I saw something like, hey, this is how she is in the first season to how she is now. And like, she's a total badass. I feel like seasons 2 and 3 were really like, hey, here's Steve's development. But like in this one, it's like, no, man, you see how dope and like how grown up Nancy's becoming.
I think Nancy had a great arc. That scene at the end when she's shooting Vecna was amazing. It really shows how she went from this like kind of timid character, kind of just like she could have almost just been just like the girlfriend and not really had an arc, into this person that is leading the charge against out-of-world demon. I do have to say though, that for all of that character development, the fact that she did not shoot him in the head got me. She should have shot him in the head. I don't understand why that didn't happen, but
it's the heat of the moment. You're trying to just be like, as long as I hit him.
Yeah. I would say that, I feel like Max was one of my favorite characters. She had a lot of moments in this season. Because she's dealing with a lot. She has to deal with the death of her brother. She had a really good conversation with him at his gravesite. But, like a big part of her story led to like a huge like resurrection of a 1980 song that is literally everywhere. Everybody's making their own version of this, running up that hill. It is an earworm now, but seeing her run from Vecna towards gravesite, listening to that song, it's so iconic now. And the fact that she's willing to sacrifice herself at the end to help the team was amazing.
That scene where she's like kind of running out of Vecna's mind when they're at the gravesite, that scene is where it hit me. Yes, they are definitely spending $10 million per episode, because that scene, I was like, this is where I feel like production quality could kind of slip. And there's maybe like a couple frames where I feel like it does, but like that's the first time that entire series where it hit me was like, this entire series has looked like a movie. Like, no wonder they spent so much money on this, because it looks incredible. And you don't ever really get taken out of that world. Like, you feel like you're a part of it. And they rightly put that much money into it to make everyone that watches it feel that way.
I could see that. I also feel like, yes, the characters have, their own arcs, but this show had an arc, because I feel like it was almost getting a little stagnant, where we're dealing with this mind flayer for 3 seasons now, and we weren't necessarily seeing that much happening. I feel like it was getting a little like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
And then they just put this in full throttle with this Vecna character, because he literally came out of nowhere. There was not necessarily a reference to him in last season. He's the main character, and you're wondering like what's happening, and you don't really necessarily get it until the end that he's like one of the soldiers of this mind flayer, which just makes the threat even bigger.
Is he a soldier? I thought the mind flayer ended up being the soldier for Vecna. Because like when they show him like in his first like encounter in the Upside Down after Elle sends him there, he kind of says, this is the thing that could take me and make me the predator that I always wanted to be.
I got the impression that he was in the Upside Down for a bit, searching around, and he found the mind flayer. Not that he created it or anything like that he found the mind flayer. So that was my interpretation of that.
Because they have scenes where he's drawing it as a kid.
Right.
And so I was thinking, okay, maybe like this darkness thing is just part of the Upside Down, and he like crafted it into being the mind flayer, maybe.
Could be. You're the second person that's said that he basically created this character, which could also make sense. I probably just have to revisit that scene.
Because in the third season, it goes after Elle and wants to take her power, which is also what he kind of says when Elle is like pinned up. He says, like, I wanted your power, which, quick side note, I don't know what happened the last two episodes. There was, one's an hour and a half, one's 2.5 hours, but I wasn't a big fan of when like everything goes black. And then it's like, okay, now we're gonna like continue the scene, but from someone else's perspective. I didn't feel like it kind of felt kind of sloppy. Like it wasn't like maybe the best editing, but I get that it does create that suspense. And you're like, crap, what's happening now? Did somebody die? But they do it like 3 times. And I think more than once is a little too much.
No, I could see that because it was almost like what is like as sometimes it almost seemed like it was the end of the show and then you could have just turned it off.
Oh, totally.
So you already mentioned that Nancy was one of your favorite characters. Did you have any other favorite characters? I definitely had another one that I relate to very well because I do think that I think she is my spirit animal.
Okay, I was gonna say if you say Eddie, I love from all the stuff I've seen online, like I love the actor that plays Eddie. Like every interview he's in and every time a fan is telling him like, hey, I love you, did so much stuff for me, and like I connect you, I'm like, yeah, like you as a person, you're a great person. But overall in the show, he's not my favorite character, but there were times in the show where I was like, oh my gosh, I feel for you. And that's Will. Like there are so many times where I feel like I saw Will like wanting to express how he really feels or ask for help. But like he's like, everyone around me is trying to help someone else. I don't want to complain or like, take attention away from what is real is important. He doesn't want to be a burden to other people. And we got some hints that, he might be trying to figure out who he is and things like that throughout the series. And there's also some other hints that if we go into D&D stuff, maybe he's going to become like the red dragon that he painted. And that's supposed to be like a big villain. And maybe Will is actually someone that Vecna's after. And he's trying to take control of Will to gain even more power than 11 ever had. So there's like some crazy theories out there, but overall, there were just several times in the series or in this episode or this season in particular, I was like, Will is just getting shelved. And we're going to probably see that take a big toll on him and everyone else in this next season.
I think his story was so relatable this season. It is hinting at his sexuality quite a bit. And so I think that when for me as a gay man, when you're not able to tell somebody that you really love how you feel, it is extremely heartbreaking, and so right now you see that image of him crying like everywhere on Twitter. But also that conversation that he had with his brother before they put Elle in the pizza freezer.
Yeah.
That was such a beautiful conversation. And I think his name is Charlie Heaton. That's the like real actor's name for Will's brother. I just think they did such a great job of showing how you can be compassionate and have your family's back without needing to know what they're going through. I just think it was such a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's what got Will through the rest of that season, really. Like the scene where they rescue 11 and 11's hugging Mike. And like you can kind of see Will is kind of down and sad. And then 11's like, hey, I want to hug you because you're kind of like a brother to me. I think if they didn't really have that conversation with Will and his brother, it could have played out differently. But he knows he has support. He knows he has someone he can kind of confide in and stuff. So yeah, I think that part, those were good parts. It was definitely a struggle to see Will go through those things. We'll see what happens in season 5. What was your favorite character with like development?
Just to go, I also did not hear that theory at all about the red dragon.
Oh,
I have not heard that theory. I've heard a whole theory about, obviously, about the guidance counselor being somehow related to Vecna because of all the key related and like clock related stuff. But
mm,
my spirit animal, that in terms of the character that I love the most, is Robin, because obviously she just says a bunch of crazy things. She says whatever she's thinking. But also when they were in the upside down and they were just getting into Vecna's house and they're all like being super cautious about, don't step on this because it's a hive mind. I'm like, I would totally be the klutz to like just totally fall over. That's immediately the first thing I thought when they were jumping over these things. I was like, I could not handle that.
that goes to how good the Duffy brothers are at writing, because that's pretty close to like the climax of the movie. And the fact that Robin is cracking a joke that she's like, oh, yeah, it took me longer to walk than others. And I might, I don't want to fall and trip and kill us. It's like, it's funny, but we also know, like, dude, stuff's about to go down. So I've got to say, Duffy Brothers, great job. The Duffy Brothers, I heard, also are going to start be doing some MCU projects. So real recognizes real. So Kevin Feige sounds like he's got some good people coming to do some future MCU projects. So
Also, I want to say one more thing, which I just realized, but the influence, which you can see in multiple areas, of Freddy Krueger on this show. I absolutely love that Freddy Krueger is one of my favorite horror villains. And the fact that they had Wes Craven in the show, literally bonus points. But there were so many references, I feel like, to Vecna's final form to Freddy.
yeah, there are a lot of great references just like throughout the entire series. And like I know you mentioned Kate Bush, and we also have Metallica coming through. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that Chrissy Wake Up song, and I liked it at first, and now I'm like, no, please don't ever play that again. So this show is just like a content generator for other great content, or highlighting other great content as well. So what other content do you kind of want to see in the future? Like, I know we talked about the Red Dragon a little bit. I don't know all the details on that theory, but the theory that I heard really was like Will becomes the Red Dragon. It's like a big thing in one of the D&D arcs, and Will ends up like killing Vecna by like merging with something in the Upside Down. Is like the theory I've heard, but don't quote me completely on that. I have to look more into that. But that's just what I heard the other day. But what are you looking for?
I am looking to see what the resolution of this story is going to be. I mean, if you think about it, Hawkins is almost completely destroyed with this kind of grand fissure earthquake that has happened. And so it's like, one, how do people get past this? But what is Elle going to go through to get her to the point where she can fully be this villain? There were moments where we felt like, oh, she's about to do it, like in the gym when she just shoves him through the bleachers. And then she ends up losing that battle. And so just seeing how she is going to go up against this villain that is almost 10 times, 100 times bigger than her, really interested to see what arc she needs to go through in order to get that amount of power.
You know what I really want to see? I want to see some parents actually do some parenting, because I just realized like Mike's parents, they're just like, oh yeah, go have fun with your friends. Oh yeah, they're just nerds. They're playing D&D. And like Dustin's mom is such a pushover. Like, yeah, Hopper and Joan are parents. So I guess they're like, oh yeah, there's that with them. But I'm like, dude, at this point, they're teenagers. And like my parents, it's a small town. It's the 80s. My parents just would never be like, oh yeah, totally. You can ride your bikes all around town all night. Like, and maybe some of their parents will die in the next season. Like it's all up in the air. There's anything could happen. They show everyone pretty much leaving Hawkins. Maybe they'll have to fight and be like, I'm staying here with my family or my friends to fight whatever's happening. So
I do feel like I needed a little bit more of a body count compared to what they said. They said that there was going to be a big body count, but there wasn't that big of a body count.
I think maybe not on screen.
Yeah, well, we only really lost Eddie
But
and that football guy.
Yeah, but
we didn't fully lose Max.
Oh, she should have died.
Yeah, I feel like they should have did that to just bring home the point.
Yeah, I'm pretty upset that she kind of stayed alive because I was like, her death kind of means a little bit less now. That like, and it's also like, when she wakes up, she's still blind. Yeah, her arms and her legs can recover, but like, she is gonna not be able to see. Maybe she becomes like a secret weapon for them for Vecna. Maybe how like Will was or Mike was, but like, I just feel like she should have died. Like, I don't know, but it just felt very like. And Chris has said this about other projects too, but he's just like, when you have so much emotion invested in someone, and then like there's just no real risk at the end, it's like, okay, what was the point?
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like we just didn't get that payout as much as it could have been because the actor that is with her, the gentleman that is longing for her, which I cannot remember his name right now. He acted that scene so
Sinclair.
Well. Yeah, Sinclair. Like it was so beautiful the way he was just emoting in that scene. But it kind of got lost because we truly didn't lose her.
Yeah, but I feel like when he was in the hospital, like reading to her, I was like, okay, for like his arc, I think was kind of rediscovering himself and who his friends actually were. And like your typical cheesy high school show, like that arc is not that high stakes. But in this one, it was like, okay, this is very real. And it felt like his arc meant a lot more than that arc would have in other, just like any like coming of age story.
True. I also think that just really quickly, just that one, there was like a quick little scene where they show a flashback of when the four first meet Elle in the woods, and just seeing how young they are compared to their ages now is insane because you just think about how long you've been on this journey with these kids.
You know what's crazy? Now that you mentioned that, they're gonna be the next like Harry Potter reunion.
Exactly.
Like, I know, like during the pandemic, like HBO did that Harry Potter reunion kind of thing. Like 8, 9, 10 years from now, they're gonna be like, "Hey, let's get back together with the cast of Stranger Things and show all these unreleased scenes that we thought we were gonna do, but we just never did." And people our age will be like, "Yes," and our nieces, nephews, or kids, or whatever will be like, "Man, that's such an old show. Like, it's a show about being old. It's a show that took place in the 80s. You didn't even live through that." Like, yeah, but
I mean, they'll be asking us what Netflix is at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll have to be like, oh, it's before whatever we had now. But
yeah.
But to keep in the present and to keep listening to things about comic books, Netflix shows, there's going to be some great new content. Harley Quinn's coming to HBO Max soon, season 3. Listen to any of those things and hear what we think about those when Chris returns. Subscribe to the Badaboom Podcast on Apple Podcasts, please, on Spotify, wherever you listen, you can hit subscribe. And you can join the conversation. There's so many theories about what's happening in the next season. So tell us if we're right or wrong. You can hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and on our new YouTube channel. Of course, all these are at Badaboom Podcast. And until next time, Badaboom.
Badaboom.